Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Irene here. We're just getting started. Started a touch late, but here we are. And as we get folks into the live here, I'm just going to make sure my sound is working. So let me know where everybody is today. I've got my chat here on my right. So yeah, let me know. Where are you in the world? Are you a member of my programs? Are you interested in joining Smart Body, Smart Mind coming up? For those new here, I am going to be talking about the program, the online program that I have created that is called Smart Body, Smart Mind. We know this as SBSM for short. Okay, good. Chat's coming in. Looks like we're ready to rock here. So I'm going to be talking about Smart Body, Smart Mind. I've got a whole bunch of great questions. I have actually today, my husband and colleague Seth is in the chat. So if you see someone chatting back to you, that is him trying to answer any quick questions that might come through, any logistical questions you might have about this 12-week curriculum. I will do an overview of what this is. I'll do a more formal introduction to who I am in a moment, but with any live, of course, all right, we're good to go. With any live, of course, we always have a little bit of a start that's a little rough. So I'm just going to see who is here. Hey, from California, Central Ohio, Jersey, New England, got a 21-day member. We have a 21-day member who wants to sign up for Smart Body, Smart Mind. Get in this time. This might be the only time we run SBSM live in 2026, just an FYI. So if there is a way for you all to join in the coming weeks, that would be the time to do it. Hello from Romania, upstate New York, Virginia, Seattle, Texas, Sherbrooke, Quebec. All right, Spain. Okay, so let's officially get started here. I'm going to take a little sip of tea. Okay, folks, so welcome. I am Irene Lyon. This is my YouTube channel, and this has been my YouTube channel for, I think close to 15 years. It might be a bit more. I originally started this channel when I was doing some documentarian video work on the Feldenkrais method. So if you go back to the very first videos we posted, it was a long time ago, you will see pictures, images, videos of athletes and babies doing movement and musicians talking about the Feldenkrais method and body awareness and neuroplasticity. So that's where I sort of started here. And then I went into the work of Peter Levine, healing trauma, out of not my own need, but the need of my clients. And the reason why that's important is because this work is ever changing. It's ever growing. And you know what, you guys, I just forgot to do one thing. So I got to follow my impulse. This is something you learn. Forgot to open my window. So I'm going to open my window, take a breather, grab a glass of water if you need to. It'll take me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay, that was quick. Okay, so I got into the work of Peter Levine back in 2008. This is somatic experiencing. I was then in private practice for many years. And this is how Smart Body, Smart Mind came to be and this channel. I started to notice that the students I was working with in my private practice, they needed more than just me once a week. They needed homework, they needed theory. And so I found myself with many of my clients with pen and paper, drawing graphs of the nervous system, telling them to read these books, but of course they probably didn't. And then we would come into my office, 30, 50 people, and I would lecture them on what I call the biology of stress. I would record audio lessons. I burned them on CDs. Truth be told, it was my husband that burned them because I don't know how to do that. But I'd burn CDs. I'd give them CDs. They would do those lessons at home. It was very clear that that homework, pardon me, was so important. And it is like learning a second language. You cannot learn a second language as an adult with 1 hour a week with a tutor. You have to study, you have to practice, you have to get uncomfortable, you have to write, you have to listen, you have to speak. Preferably, you go to the country of that language and you immerse yourself and you integrate. If you've ever learned a second language as an adult fluently, you know that takes time. I know that the Europeans who are here are typically better at knowing more than one language, unlike us here in North America. So you know what that's about. And so this work, this nervous system work, is very much about learning a second language. So back to that time when I was in private practice, creating these lessons, these theory pieces, that's when the online learning space was just starting to poke its head out and go, oh, this is something. And I kind of learned. I was self-taught. I started putting stuff on the internet, started up this YouTube channel. And over a course of about, I would say 4 to 5 years, we created 2 really strong curriculums. The first one was Smart Body, Smart Mind. This is a 12-week curriculum. I have to say this, though, the curriculum is not just 12 weeks. We go through it in 12 weeks as a group, but the content is something that you can practice and learn, and most do for years. You might be wondering, Irene, that sounds crazy. Why would I want to do this for years? Think about learning that second language. You wouldn't perfect that second language in 12 weeks. You might get the basics on board, but then you have to practice, you have to integrate. Our nervous system is built from the ground up in utero, when we're in our mama's tummy, in her womb, and then infancy, toddlerhood, that's when we're really building up our nervous system. That's years, right? If you have children, you know by age 3, that little one is not a full-grown human. It takes a long time to learn how to walk, talk, read, write, regulate emotions, navigate the world. And so if we didn't get that start in a good way, in a connected way, in a healthy way, in an attuned way, in a secured attachment way, in a good co-regulation way, all these buzzwords that are out there right now in the space of trauma healing, if we didn't get that good enough, we have seen and we now know that this can have consequence later in life. And sadly, we're seeing this happening younger and younger and younger in populations of people. So if you're new here, this is going to be all brand new, and I cannot get through everything in this live stream. I'm going to answer questions. And with those questions, I will teach. Just so you know, Smart Body, Smart Mind, it is online. It is self-directed in that you follow your own pace. We have a guide. We guide you through in certain weeks. We say, we suggest you do this and this, but inevitably, we want people to go at their own pace. This is something that takes time to figure out. And it takes diligence and commitment, but when you stick with it, and I don't mean just in those 12 weeks, I mean for the years after, and we have hundreds of testimony and anecdote from our students who have been doing this with me for some 7 years. And I'll talk about some of, not specific people, but I'm going to talk about clusters of things that I see that get better with this work. Most come to this because of chronic illness. So if you're here and you have something that you are healing, struggling with, let us know in the comments. Typically, people find this due to chronic illness, autoimmune, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, anxiety disorders, depression. But also some are doing this because they just feel hopeless. There's no life left in them. There's no drive. There's tons of resistance, tons of bad decisions over and over again. brain fog, inability to sleep, relationships that are terrible, getting into abusive situations over and over again. This can all be stemmed back to dysregulation of the nervous system. And while healing our nervous system is not everything, our autonomic nervous system drives everything. I'm going to say that one more time. While healing our nervous system is not the only thing that we want to do, meaning we need to eat well and exercise and get outside and take care of our bodies, and maybe we need to get some body work, learn things, etc., therapy. We need those things, some of us more than others. I'm someone that's been doing body work for nearly 30 years of my life for my own injuries, and I still get body work weekly because of my history. But the thing is if we don't have the nervous system grounding and the nervous system knowledge and the capacity and the regulation on board, we can pile on, and I'm using my hands to describe this, we can pile on stuff and stuff and stuff and methodologies and journaling and talk therapy and retreats and books and plant medicine and all the things that have validity at times. But if that base, if that nervous system is shaky, or if it is not even regulated from the beginning, that crumbles. I know from talking to many, many hundreds of my students that that's a common story. They've been trying everything, and then this is the one thing that really does work. So I'm going to have a little liquid here. So someone just asked, can you please explain what somatic practice brings to trauma healing that SE somatic experiencing does not, with examples? This is a great question. It's a big question. I'm going to go back a little bit. This work that I do is very new. I have had training over the last, I'm not good with math. I started my mind-body training in 2004. And I have been in trainings pretty much yearly from that moment until about 2017. But even this March, I'm going to be doing more training. We are always learning, right? The work of Peter Levine is wonderful. The work of Kathy Kane, wonderful. Those are two people who I've learned from. The work of Diane Poole Heller, wonderful. Larry Heller, well, wonderful. IFS, Dick Schwartz, wonderful. Aline Lapierre, wonderful. Like, so there's all these great branches, but they don't comprise the full picture of what we might need to do to work with someone. But we're in this stage right now, you guys, where we're building up all of these sections. If you think about medicine, medicine isn't just one thing, right? Think about this. Like, give yourself a little quiz. Medicine is medicine, but there's different branches of it. There's orthopedics, there's plastic surgery, there's pediatrics, there's endocrinology, there's neurology, immunology, psychoneuroimmunology, general surgery. And so medicine was created by branches that then came together. And so you might have a general practitioner, a GP, who's got a little bit of everything, but then they might need to refer you to an orthopedic surgeon to get something specifically done on your body. I know this very well. Right now, this question, what's the difference between somatic practice and SE? They're both wonderful and they do different things. In Smart Body, Smart Mind, you are learning elements and principles of somatic experiencing, and you're learning elements and principles of somatic practice that typically dives more into early trauma work. You're also learning the Feldenkrais method elements through how I teach, through my audio lessons, and through the movement protocols that rewire how you sense your body and move your body. And then there's theory. The theory isn't just within the SE model and the somatic practice model and the Feldenkrais model. I blend in a lot of the masterclass level work that I learned through Peter Levine when I was in class with him, but also assisting. And so right now, as far as I know, and SBSM was the first online course to be put out there back in, originally the roots were 2012, and then it really got solidified in 2015, 16. So it's about 10 years old. and it stood the test of time because it has these multiple methodologies in one. And then I just have a knack for teaching this stuff. It's just my gift, we could say. And so people will often say, I went and did SE, somatic experiencing. It did nothing. I'll tell you this, you guys, the first time I did an SE session, I'm like, this is not doing anything. And it didn't, because I was so damn functionally frozen from all of my injuries and my upbringing and my chemical trauma that I suffered as a baby. It wasn't what I needed in that moment, but it was still a great methodology, you see? So typically most humans have some early trauma, some of us lots, some of us developmental trauma, some of us abuse, horrific upbringings, maybe medical trauma, and then others maybe have some shock traumas. Maybe we were brought up in a war-torn country where you never knew where your food was going to come, right? Maybe there was a car accident that you were in, maybe multiple accidents. Maybe you had parents who were just slightly misattuned. They weren't abusive, but they were just not quite there. All these different kinds of traumas require different kinds of methodologies. And while SBSM isn't everything, I have seen through the results of my students a global improvement because of all those methodologies. So that is the difference. One is not better than the other. They're just different. And it's important for you to know that you might be doing one form of those methods, but what you actually need is something else. And the beauty, again, of SBSM is you're getting a little bit of everything. Okay, I'm going to get in some questions that were sent in via email. I'm just have a little water here. And thanks, everyone. The chat is hopping. So I really want to make sure as I talk through some of these things, you do listen, because I might answer some of your questions. I'm going to say a couple more things before I get into questions. At its core, what we're learning in Smart Body, Smart Mind is its name. Smart Body, we're working with our body, which isn't just the muscles. It's the nerves, it's the movement, it's how they connect. In SBSM, we're working with stress organs that release adrenaline and cortisol when we're under duress. We're working with the breath, but not from a breathwork perspective. We're working with what's called the diaphragms of the body. If you go see an osteopath, if you've ever seen an osteopath or a craniosacral therapist, or even a really good massage therapist, they're working with areas of the body called diaphragms. And these diaphragms run from the top of the head all the way down to our feet. And when we have shock, when we have trauma, when we have collapse, when we have rigidity, these diaphragms, they not only close down, but they can rigidify themselves or they can collapse, but they also hold the trauma history. They hold the emotion. They hold the survival stress. And so just moving our body, I'm doing some movements here with my arms, wonderful for the circulation and the joints and the range of motion, but we have to get into a more delicate space within our physiology to listen. Oh, that's why my heart space closed down. It's not just this more chakra-based heart space concept, which is a thing. It's also because the fascia and the lung tissue around that area and the breathing tubes and the food tubes all got tightened. They all got scared in that accident, in that scary situation over and over and over again. And so we can work with emotion, we can work with sensation, that's all important. But the body, remember I'm speaking about smart body, we have to touch into these areas within the lessons of SBSM. And by the way, all of the syllabus and curriculum is on the site. So please read through and look at that. But you are learning how to touch and listen and direct your attention and visualization and focus to these diaphragms, to the adrenals, to the kidneys, to the gut-brain connection, to the joints of the body. Anything in the system, everything in the body is impacted by chronic stress, early trauma, shock trauma. And so when we work with that body, it becomes smarter. And then an interesting thing happens. Our mind becomes smarter because this higher brain of ours is actually governed and is driven by stress physiology. So when we're encased in this stored trauma, we can't think clearly. We can't make decisions very well. It's very hard for us to seek out good when all that we've known is danger. So sometimes good situations, when they come up, they actually might seem opposite. We might think, oh, that's dangerous, but it's actually a good thing. This is where attachment wounds come in, right? Mixed signals that we get from our primary caregivers, usually our mother, father, nanny, aunties, uncles, grandparents. This is where that transgenerational piece comes in. We were held and connected with individuals who were under extreme duress or maybe loved us, but they had not healed their own stuff. We will feel that through their hands and through their energy and how they hold us. And as little babies, that's how we feel. Something's not right here, but I don't know what that is, but this is just normal. So I'm just going to protect, or I'm just going to collapse. And then that becomes our norm. That becomes our North Star. So SBSM is not just do this technique when you're anxious, do this sound when you're depressed, do this movement when your hips are tight, do this journaling when you're feeling sad. It's teaching you the raw materials of regulation that we should have gotten in infancy, toddlerhood. This is why we do Feldenkrais movement in SBSM, to reconnect to our body movement, to our skeleton, to ease of movement. The other thing that's unique to SBSM, in addition to the audio lessons where I teach, there's 36 of them over the course of 12 weeks. There's weekly training calls with myself, added theory, important theory on Zoom. And then my husband, colleague Seth, and some of our other highly trained moderators, they do Q&A throughout the course of it's 12 weeks, but it's 10 weeks for an active session. And they answer questions. We call them curated Q&As. People submit questions, and then we clump together important topics and then speak and teach to those topics. There is live support. We call it asynchronous support. It's a fancy word for, there's a forum where you ask questions under various threads within our program site. And then we have a team of, I think now it's 8 moderators that go in and answer your question, and then you get emailed back. So it's a very comprehensive program. It isn't just, here you go, have at her. Some people do that. Some people are very good at just self-sustaining and self-study, and they don't need to be in the live calls. They listen to them afterwards. Everything is recorded. All right. Okay. Let me have a little more liquid. And yeah, you guys, I just see a little commentary in here. The biggest fear people have is finishing. This is a result of how we were brought up in what we would call the Prussian education system, where we're learning by rote, we're learning memorization, we're learning to be good little soldiers, good little cogs. Now, that might be important if we really do need to memorize something, but typically most of us were brought up in a school system where we were under threat to do well. There were conditions. If we didn't do this, we didn't get that. If we did well, we got praised. If we didn't do well, we got punished. Maybe we got physically abused, shouted at from our parents. So not only are the lessons important in SBSM, so listen up if you're focusing on the chat right now. Not only are the lessons important, how you learn and how you connect with the material is a whole rewiring in itself. And many people will say, especially the overachievers, if you're one of those people, I'm going to get it all done in 12 weeks and be healed. I'm going to heal everything in 12 weeks. All my generational trauma gone. It doesn't work that way. The universe will slow you down. And that's okay. But learning how to learn again is a very big part of this, because we have to rewire how we learn so we enjoy learning. And for many of us, we didn't like learning. We forced ourselves to just get through it. And I see that in the students, even when we say this over and over again. Seth can attest to this. The thing we are asked over and over again, I feel like I'm behind. I feel like I'm failing. Then that brings in shame. This is all old stuff. This is all old wiring. In a world where children are given space to learn and create and feel and play and learn right from wrong and all the things, they develop in a much easier, better way. There's less survival stress. Typically, those kids go on to have a little bit more robustness and resiliency. So this is key, you guys, is it's not about how quickly you can get through the program. That's why when you have the content, it's yours. You can download it, you can save it, you can repeat it. We don't shut you out of the lessons. So, okay, now I will get into some questions. Okay, first question was submitted to email from Sini. And so I'll read out the question first. So they say, I'm doing my second round of the 21-day nervous system tune-up course. Oh, by the way, some of you, one of the bigger questions we get is, what's the difference between my 21-day nervous system tune-up and SBSM? The answer is, I created 21 days so that when we were in live session with SBSM, a person could start something. That was the original intent of creating 21 days. Now, of course, the tuition is lower. It's $297 for 21 day. Smart Body, Smart Mind right now is just under $2,000 US. So it's a different price point. And if you're like, what? That's a lot of money. Yes, it's a big chunk of money. It's an investment. And like I said, you will have this material and you will be able to practice it. And if you go in it, you will practice this for the rest of your life. There comes a point, though, as I mentioned, that you become fluent in nervous system language and you won't need to revisit the lessons over and over again. But the course differences is that the 21-day is just like a little beginning starter point. It does not work with early trauma, does not get into the body levels that Smart Body, Smart Mind does. Okay, so this person is doing the 21 days. They say, when I get suddenly a skin rash or very itchy without much signs of a rash, can this be something that the body wants to get out? I haven't changed soaps or lotions. I notice that when my stress gets higher, itching gets worse too. I've had some trouble with fluids, lymph, and now I'm slowly helping that with some homeopathy. So some deep detox is happening. So skin is really interesting. Skin is the largest organ of our body. I personally have lived through immense skin issues. If you go to my site, you can see a photo, 2 photos of me about 15 years ago when my skin was good and it looked like burns all over my body. It felt terrible. It was awful. For me, I had chemical trauma in utero, which means I was exposed to chemicals that my mother was exposed to. And when I came out, I was just one big rash and I was inflamed. It was really, really bad. It's amazing that I actually survived if I really think about it and look at those photos. So some people may have had an exposure to something that makes them more susceptible to react. Now, the interesting thing with this question, as this person said, the lymph is not flowing, the fluids aren't good. This could be an indication that there was some form of fluid trauma. Now, the other thing that can create trauma to the fluids, chemicals can do that, but so can electrocution. I know that's a weird one, but for those who have maybe been hit by lightning, have been electrocuted by fences, have had some form of electrical therapy that was constant, that can damage the fluids. Now, the thing with detox, our skin can emit, right? When you're a little stinky, you smell yourself. That is an emitting of toxins, but our skin isn't very efficient at emitting toxins. We want the kidneys, the liver, the gut, our deeper organs to be the ones that detox bad stuff. But if the internal organs are sluggish due to a myriad of factors, one of them can be dysregulation of the nervous system, the skin will try to emit that toxin. So what starts to happen as we start to get more regulated is the system also can let go of held toxins that have been stored in our body for a long, long time. And so the key with rashes and skin problems is you want to try, and I know it's very hard, not to itch them, soothe them, less heat on your skin, more cool. Movement is important. Of course, diet, homeopathy is wonderful. I use this myself. Even things like sauna can be important. There's a product, the only product that I've ever promoted. It's a product from Touchtone Essentials. We can link that here or in the notes afterwards. It's a mineral called zeolite, and you want to make sure you use the Touchtone Essentials company because they clean their zeolite. But this zeolite cages toxins and excretes it out of your body. And it was one of the things that really helped me clear up my skin. So this is part of the system shifting and changing. This comes into the category of sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. And the thing that I didn't like hearing, but I'll say it with skin, the good thing is that you're seeing it on the outside. Sometimes things are going on internally in the organs and you don't see it until things are too bad or not good, right? This is where cancer comes in. So while it's difficult to have rashes, at least something is getting out, but we also want to make sure that we're detoxing at the organ level in a way that's healthy. So definitely want to get those organs flowing better. Movement is, of course, very important. And trying to assess what traumas have I had? What do I need to work with? And then the same person asked about tinnitus or tinnitus. Can you explain a little more about that? I have tinnitus. It's usually not very loud, but every now and again, it gets really loud for some time. This is not my expertise, but it is one of those syndromes that Peter Levine would classify that would depict dysregulation in the nervous system. It can also depict something shifting in the nervous system. So tinnitus can also be due to hearing damage. So if someone, this is typically more so in industrial workers, when they're welding, in loud environments and they don't wear ear protection, you damage the ear, that can create tinnitus or tinnitus. But we've also seen when there is dysregulation in the nervous system, and if you remember, I was talking about those diaphragms that go from head to toe. When we have stored survival stress, this fight, flight, freeze, and shutdown, the flow through those diaphragms isn't very good. It can be good in some areas, but closed down in other areas. And so that lack of flow can create a constriction and a dilation that's a little chaotic within those ear organs and the vasculature that goes to the head, to the brain. This is where migraine headaches come in. It's due to an overdilation of the blood vasculature in the head. But with tinnitus, it's a little trickier, I think, to pinpoint exactly what it is. What I will say, if someone has had history of head trauma, whiplash, concussion, or really anything where this spinal column of ours has been hit hard and the system is tight, that can have an upstream effect. I've also heard that with long COVID and long vaccine, some people have had horrific tinnitus. And I can't say what exactly needs to occur in that case, but we do know that that element was impacting our central nervous system, COVID in particular. So then it comes back to, we need to work with the body. We need to work with the nervous system, restoring regulation to it, restoring flow. Okay, great questions there. Next question is from Malky. And they write, this is a little longer of a question. So it's been super helpful and your voice is so soothing and calm. Thank you. Here is my story in question. My nervous system crashed 6.5 years ago at age 34, had a major trigger and trauma that blew me open and brought all my early and developmental trauma to the surface, which, in addition to a lot of hormonal dysregulation, epigenetics, extreme stress, I've pretty much been non-functional and living in a state of terror. Okay, because this is such a long question, I'm going to use parts of this to teach. So, a lot of people will have an event. It could be an accident. It could be just a lot of stress all culminating in one moment. It often can be the death of a loved one, the loss of a pet. Mold exposure can do this, I've seen. War, something really scary. And then our system just crashes. But it doesn't add up to the level of stress that we had in that acute moment. But this person gives me the clue. It opened up early and developmental trauma. So when we have had early and developmental trauma and we've been really good humans at compartmentalizing that, which we're very good at because of this higher brain of ours, this is kind of the con of being a human. There's pros and cons. The pro is we can heal and relearn. The con of this higher brain is that we can also stick this stuff. We can suppress it. Heck, we can create multiple personalities to suppress things that we don't want to feel. This is how clever the human system is. But when we've had a lot of stored stuff and we didn't know it, we can have an event and it just crashes our system. So this is really common. And I will say this crash won't get better with just good eating and journaling and spiritual work. I'm going to be just blunt. You need to work at this early nervous system level, which is, again, what we teach in SBSM and what my colleagues might do and work with if you saw someone one-on-one with the level of expertise that myself and our team have. So they write, I've been trying to put myself back together piece by piece since and have been dealing with weird physical symptoms, anxiety that's debilitating, chronic fatigue. So this is all indicative of a system that has tons of charge, you guys, fight, flight, some of that freeze energy, and then collapse. This is where the fatigue comes in. This is where the debilitating anxiety is. It's this flipping of fight, flight in the system, and it doesn't know where to go. It doesn't know how to get out because your system doesn't have the language, that nervous system regulation language of how to either contain, feel, integrate, release, orient, resource, work with the layers of the body, emit sound, emit energy. I hope that makes sense. So when we have this whirling anxiety and chronic pain, and often with these situations, the pain doesn't make any sense. And this is why the doctors think people are crazy. They say it's psychosomatic because one day it's here and then the next day it's there and then it's over there. And then you have diarrhea. Then you have a migraine headache. What's with that? This is nervous system dysregulation where there's a cycling between the survival stress elements of the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, and they're ping-ponging back and forth. It's like one of those old-fashioned, games, pinball machine. Think about that. That's what's happening. Things are lighting up. This is really important to understand, you guys, because what will happen, I know there'll be a bunch of questions, and maybe there's already some here. People will ask, what about this problem, Irene? What about that problem? What about this autoimmune condition? What about Raynaud's or RSD or all these complex pain things? They often can be traced back to, if not always, this deep dysregulation of the nervous system. So get excited about that stuff because it was the one thing that really lit up in my head when I was in my training and I went to myself. I remember where I was standing in our room. I was standing up, leaning against a table by a window, and our teacher at the time for SE said, this is what creates these symptoms and syndromes. And I went, whoa, everything made sense. So this is textbook. I'll continue. I've been processing trauma and trying to heal nonstop all these years. I've gotten much better, but I'm still not where I'd like to be. I found you on YouTube, devoured all the info, took the 21-day course, which mainly helped with anxiety around my symptoms. That's great. The fear of fear, also great. We have to feel fear, you guys. I'm going to say this again. To heal our nervous system, we have to feel the fear that's trapped in our body, but not be afraid of it. It's when we are afraid of it that it gets more energy. Whereas we want to just feel it as a neutral sensation, which, trust me, isn't always easy, but you get there with practice. They say, my interoception is naturally high. So interoception is the perception of our internal environment. It typically is very high in some folks who have a lot of, like myself, high sensitivity. I actually believe we're all very sensitive, some of us more than others, depending on how we've had to suppress. So this person is intuitive, sensitive to energies. I've been practicing orienting daily, building capacity, and doing some other ebooks that I have, the 7 steps to de-stress. I find my main work is to build capacity and safety and strengthen my nervous system, not more trauma release, as that has been spontaneously happening all these years. Great. So you're on the right track. This person is on the right track. But what I'm missing here is the early trauma pieces. So the question, here's the question. Would Smart Body, Smart Mind significantly benefit me beyond the tune-up if I mainly need to focus on rebuilding and integration? Absolutely yes. In my mind, everything in SBSM is about building capacity. Everything is about integration because we're working with the layers of the body, as I mentioned, the diaphragms, the joints, the kidneys, the adrenals. These are the exact same things. If someone came to see me when I was in private practice and they presented with this case history, I would do hands-on work. It's not manipulative work like massage, but we would bring focus to the tissues of the body that have been either shut down or over-rigidified or are flipping between both. And typically those systems are scared. They don't trust anything. And that's not a way to live. And so, yep, SBSM is definitely that next level to get to these early developmental pieces. In my opinion, you can't get to those early pieces if you don't work at the level of this stress chemistry. 21-day, again, is wonderful, but it's just that beginning of learning the basic principles of capacity building. Okay, and then they say, love this, I'm extremely sensitive to energies, so am I. Astrological influences, so am I. Solar events, me too. Cosmic events, grid stuff, and they've been very disruptive to my nervous system. Yeah, this is true. There have been massive solar storms, specifically the end of January. I'm not making this up. This is a real thing. The sun emits massive radiation, and it just created something pretty strong at our poles. This is why the cold has been snapping, cold snap on the east coast of the United States, and over here on the west, it's warm, and there's like this line, and it has to do with what the sun is creating, and then we feel it. We are quantum electrical beings, so the more open we are, and also the more we're holding, we'll feel this will magnify what's going on inside of us. The one thing I have learned is even with high regulation, some people are just more sensitive to this stuff. I had a headache that was debilitating end of January, and it was when the solar flares were at its height. And no matter what I did, I just had to wait it out. Just had to wait it out. My sleep was also a bit messed up. So would SBSM help with this? I think I answered that question. It will help you be in the discomfort when that stuff comes. Again, speaking from myself, my own experience, sometimes this stuff just hits us and we have to just be really good at resourcing. We might need to shift our schedules, etc. Okay, next question from Julia. Let me have something to drink. So she asks, I would like to ask Irene whether someone who's exposed to unsafe environments and new trauma can engage with the program or should wait. I'm thinking about sporadic issues, i.e. when there's a family IG, in other words, when there's a family conflict and you're exposed to people who sometimes can be hostile or violent. Many thanks. So this is a great question. I'm going to answer this broadly, Julia. Typically, we say to folks, if you are living in an environment that is safe, so your environment is good, but the people you're talking about and the issues are outside, I do believe that this would greatly help, because you will learn how to process what's happening as opposed to suppress it or react or get defensive. And it's the reactions, either the fight, the flight, the freeze, or the collapse, that occur in our system when we interact with toxic people, folks who are not good to us. If we're not aware of our physiology, of course, their energy, their physiology will, for lack of a better word, destroy our ability to feel good, right? It'll bring us down. So I do think that, yes, here's the other thing. When people do this work, and this isn't always the case, but I've heard it enough times to know that it's a real effect. An odd thing can sometimes happen with the family members or significant others. And by that, I mean, as you start to shift your energy and your physiology, because this transfers to that question I just mentioned about cosmic solar energies, our energetic imprint and how we vibe out changes. And that can shift how those people influence us. Or they might be like, something's different with Julia today. I don't want to scream, or I don't want to do this thing. Now, this doesn't always work, but it does often occur. I see this happen a lot with parents and their children, even adult children. Now, the case where I would say maybe not is if you are living, because I know of many of our students still live at home with parents, which is totally fine. Sometimes we need to do that, but we're adults and we're living in that environment. And if anything we do is scrutinized or ridiculed, and they see that we're doing something to help heal ourselves, and that mother or father or aunt or uncle or whomever is belligerent to us and being really just nasty about us wanting to heal, then that can actually make the process a little tougher. We've had people who have done this work while they've been living at home with abusive parents, but I will say from what I've heard, it is very difficult, because as you start to heal your body, you become more feeling, you become more open, but then you interact with those people living in your environment, and then you have to close off again. So it's like the stop start. I hope that answers that question. I've heard of stories from our members who have been living in pretty desperate times, living out of their car, homeless. But of course, in that case, they're alone. They're just on their own, and they're so dedicated to healing and getting out of that situation that they do the work. I will take this time to talk about relationships. So sorry, guys, but typically it's the woman that starts the work. I've seen it the other way, but by and by, the females start the work and they start to change. And if you have a significant other, partner, spouse, whatever you want to call it, if that other person is not interested in changing themselves, that's where more conflict occurs. So I've heard stories of folks getting divorced. I've heard stories of folks falling in love at age like 65. True story. I'm thinking of 2 women that I've met over the years who started to heal because they had chronic illness. Both in this case had fibromyalgia, and another one had severe intestinal issues. If I can recall, diarrhea that came like that, like explosions, right? Deep shutdown of the parasympathetic. Both of those women found the loves of their life, middle to late age. One got married. I met her in the UK. It was like, I cried. It was amazing. She thought, I'm never going to meet anybody. And she did. So this goes both ways, right? We can leave relationships that are toxic, but we can also find relationships that are really good. This is also reminding me of career. Some of my favorite stories, and right now I'm thinking of someone I've interviewed named Darla, another one named Bernadette, and another new story that we haven't released yet. Susan will release this video of her. She's recording the video outside in the snow. I think she's in the Yukon of Canada. And all those women in their older years are now pursuing careers teaching children, something that they've always wanted to do, but they never did because of their dysregulation. So I really love those stories because yes, we want to heal. Absolutely. And these three women I'm thinking about had to work on their physiology work first. They had to work on their chronic symptoms that were debilitating. One was a spinal injury. Once they got out of that, and by out of that, I mean, it took a few years to get out of that, then they found their purpose, their career path, and they're contributing and serving little people. And now these little people, these children are getting great mother figures who are regulated. And that just is so good. Okay. Next question from Angelica. Do we need to feel the triggers and painful emotions in order to heal them? If so, how can we feel into them safely? This is a great question. So yes, we will eventually need to, I like the word sense, experience. This is why Peter called his work somatic experiencing. We want to sense. I'm going to replace the word trigger with activation. This is an activation of the nervous system that's like, this reminds me of something that was really bad and scary that happened 40 years ago or last week. We're being activated. Our survival stress is activated for good reason. It was a threat to us, right? When we were, I'll just use the case of, let's say, bad things happened to us when we were little, we can't fully emote. We start to learn, if I cry when I'm being beaten, if I cry when I'm being abused sexually, if I try to fight back, it's going to get worse. So what does our nervous system do? Because it's so damn clever, it shuts us down. It numbs us up. It floats us out of our body. So we're watching this happen. But all that stuff has gotten stored. We didn't get to run. We didn't get to fight. We didn't get to shake the neck of that person or say, fuck you, stop that. So when we're now in a place to consciously want to heal, again, part of Smart Body, Smart Mind is building up the capacity in our body so that when these old memories and survival stresses and activations come out in real time, and they will, we know exactly what to do. We might need to resource. We might need to contain. We might need to run on the spot. We might need to scream. But again, like I said a while ago, we don't give you a list that says, when you feel this activation, do this. It takes about up to lab 8. This is the modules of our course, to learn all these different resourcing, layering lessons. So you're learning again the craft of how to be with your body, how to sense it, how to feel it, how to integrate these things, so that when 2 months down the road, a year down the road, for some of my students, we're just going to release another interview with one of our alumni, Hosanna. Just recently, another big activation surfaced out of her system because her system is more safe. It has more capacity. So these big boulders of trauma are finally coming up to the surface. But she said, I now know what to do with it. So it's not, it doesn't mean it doesn't feel intense. It's going to feel intense, but the mind doesn't go, uh-oh. It goes, ooh, this is a thing I need to work with. Let's get this out. So yes, we will need to feel these activations, i.e. triggers, these emotions. they were painful because we couldn't express them, right? If you've ever held back, if you ever tried to hold back intense tears, it hurts. The throat burns. You almost can't swallow. It's because everything is clamping down because we're suppressing them. And then as soon as that dam is open, it's just like waterworks, right? And convulsing, and it's getting that opening through the diaphragms. So how do we feel into them safely? It's just what I said, Angelica. It's this growing of this new language. Again, you guys, I can't say this enough. This isn't something that we just get better in 12 weeks. We build and we learn in that 12-week container. And then you have to go off and keep doing this work on your own. Some of our students will go and find a therapist, a somatic therapist. They'll work with one of our colleagues, or they'll just go back to lab 1, lesson 1, and start from the beginning, or they'll go to their favorite lessons, or they'll go to the ones that were a little harder to do the first time around. And then they notice, ooh, I can do this now. Or they'll go back and listen to theory and revisit it, because the theory also gives us capacity, because it lets our brain know, oh, this isn't crazy. The fact that my arm's twitching isn't crazy. Okay. Next question. Oh, this is also from Angelica. Let me just have a little bit more drink here. Thanks, guys. This is, I hope this is useful. Thanks, Seth, for answering questions. Okay. Can trauma cause me to use a high-pitched voice often? Yes, it can. And to feel like I have to be overlearning and overworking? Yes. I just talked about this yesterday on a podcast that I was on. How can I heal that? Everything that we're talking about. So the high pitch thing is really interesting to me. Not that I want you to do this. If you go back to my old videos like 10, 12 years ago, you will be shocked at how much higher my voice is. I'm younger, obviously, but my voice is much higher. My eyes are a little twitchier. When our voice, now you can be a soprano opera singer and have a really high-pitched voice, and that's like intentional. But when we can't drop into a deeper voice, I'm going to point to my gut and my perineum and my hips and my bones. It means often that system, often there's a brittleness to it. There isn't juice in it. You know, when you go into a church or a big auditorium and you make a sound and you hear the echo, when our diaphragms are shut down or not in flow, when our hip joints are squeezed shut, when our belly is always tight because we're sucking our gut in, or we were maybe abused in that area, if our heart is closed off because we were hurt so much, these spaces, they're chambers essentially. They don't have flow, or they become rigid, or they become collapsed. You cannot force a deep voice out of that. Often, when you consider some cultures that have very high-pitched voices, you will see that their lips are often very skinny. It's like there's slits. Whereas cultures that have more expression, like I don't think I've ever seen someone in more Latin cultures with thin lips, right? There's a lot more vibrancy, a lot more juiciness and openness. Whereas this classic stiff British upper lip concept is taken from that kind of aristocratic, snobbery and poshness. And I'm just going to hold in everything. And I do not defecate, and I do not, have urges and all these things. I'm just like this, right? And there's just like this, I'm acting a little bit here. There's just this suppression. You even see it when someone's holding back tears. Their mouth gets tight. When we're holding back boundary and aggression, everything gets tight. So yes, this is often a very typical byproduct, we could say, of dysregulation. The overlearning and overworking, this is just a function of our society. Overworking, gosh, we're in a world right now where Some of us have to work a lot and it sucks. But some of us were maybe brought up, what I often see in folks who overwork and overlearn, and this might resonate with you, is it wasn't safe. So if there was unsafety in the environment, we will be that perfect kid. We will do all the things so that mom or dad don't get mad at us. We will be that perfect A student so that we don't get bad things that happen to us, that we don't get screamed at. We get love because we're showing productivity. And so the overlearning is another way to stay safe. If I know everything in the world, if I'm an expert in 10 different subjects, no one is going to, debate me down, and I'm going to rise up to that occasion to show how smart I am. Now, of course, intelligence and learning is very important, as is hardworking sometimes. Sometimes we have to push through some things, but I definitely know from my own personal experience and working with others that drive can also come from generational, right? So if we were brought up I'm 50, so my parents were World War II, post World War II. Their parents were definitely in the main wars. My mother was in Asia. Like, bad stuff was happening. Bad stuff's happening now, but like, it was quite bad back then with famine and depression. And I know that that's still happening in the world, and there's wars, but that generation had an intense upbringing with the bombs and all that stuff. And so when those adults who were our grandparents and parents were living, they had to hoard, they had to work like heck. They couldn't splurge on anything because there was nothing to splurge on. And so that gets transferred. Now, I'm not saying we need to be gluttonous and overspending and all that kind of stuff, but that can play out. And so how do we find that balance? All right. This is very interesting. This is alignment here. So this next question is from Maria. I did not know this question was here, so this is so interesting. This is how we know we're on right track when this alignment happens. So question, as a three-year-old bombed and buried alive in a bunker while fleeing the Soviet Union, so the USSR, in World War II. So obviously you survived, but you were 3, and there was a bombing. You were buried alive in a bunker while fleeing the Soviet Union in World War II. You were a refugee. Mother was fearful, as she should have been, nervous for the rest of her life. Like, when this happens to a person, you are going to be afraid. You are going to go into protection mode. No matter how much you love your child and your kids, they will feel this. This is one of Gabor Mate's main stories, is being born during Nazi occupation in Hungary, in Budapest. So she then says, Maria says, life okay until. So your life was okay. And this is very similar to the question I just answered about the person who, the name was Malky, where there was a big life event and then all the early traumas came fluttering out with chronic pain and symptoms. So this person says everything was okay until the COVID pandemic. And then the pandemic brought up fear of what can happen at any time. There's no control. And then, of course, there's the war in the Ukraine, triggers old experiences, of course. And now my husband falls, medical appointments, blood clots, rehab, PT. I'm now the caretaker watching him and afraid of falling. So there's depression. I have lack of motivation. My nervous system is in overdrive, taking care of all the household management. I'm exhausted, physical symptoms showing up, pain, tingling, numbness, short of breath, not sure I can handle all this. So what is the advice? Wow. So my advice is everything I've just said. Everything. I really want to encourage this person, well, all of you really, to watch the interview that I released with Hosanna on Sunday. Make a note of it. Hosanna Sunday. I think it's the 15th of February. Yeah. Her story is a play-by-play of early abuse and trauma, not exactly the same as you, Maria, with this Eastern European nightmare. And then now in a situation that is also a bit of a nightmare. I know that we need to take care of our loved ones, but when you're the primary caregiver, that is a lot. Add in this early trauma and then of course the pandemic and all that elements. That's a lot. That's like your system. I've got my cup, this glass of water here. It's overflowing with water and it's just spilling everywhere, and you can't clean it up fast enough, right? Watch Hosanna's talk, because she talks through, she lived through sexual abuse from age 1 to 21. And she doesn't talk about the graphic details of this, but she talks about the complex PTSD, the panic, the suicidal thoughts, all the things that occur when you've had that level of abuse for so long. The system can't handle it anymore. So what you are saying here, physical symptoms, this makes sense. Fight, flight, and freeze, and your collapse and shutdown, along with the fears being reactivated by this chronic need to be the caregiver. COVID happens, everything is just ping-ponging. It is essential, in my opinion, that you work on this. I know things are really bad right now, and I'm not going to say this to be negative. I'm just saying this to be truthful. This will not get better with time. This is where we see really debilitating chronic conditions typically come up. This is the thesis of Gabor Mate's book, When the Body Says No. If you don't know his history, in addition to being born into the Holocaust time, he was a palliative care physician. He was the head of palliative care at Vancouver General, probably in the 80s, based on when he wrote his book. And he saw individuals with this exact history where they're caretaking, they're doing everything for others, but they also have a trauma history. I hate to say this, but the result of that can be severe autoimmune condition. This is where multiple sclerosis comes in. This is where ALS comes in. This is where severe skin problems come in, circulatory problems, what we would call Raynaud's or complex regional pain syndrome. My sense is if you were to go to a general doctor, they would most likely, and I'm just saying this not necessarily for you, but from my experience, the doctors would probably send you to a neurologist, and they would probably diagnose this with what's called complex regional pain syndrome, which is what is happening, but it's because the underlying physiology is going haywire. Not only does it want to rest, it wants to restore safety, because that 3-year-old you is still in terror. That 3-year-old you is still in absolute terror. It's like you're stuck in a near-death experience state. I know I'm really putting out the deep punches here, but this is really important to understand. All of this stuff connects. So I really wish you well, Maria. If you can begin with Smart Body, Smart Mind, my advice to you, go super slow. Go super slow, give yourself space. I'm also going to say, it might be that where resources have to go to is hiring some help, getting some meals prepped. Again, I don't know where you are in the world. I don't know if that's possible, but if depending on what you have available, it also might be that you just need some basic needs met. Maybe you need a house cleaner every week. Maybe you need to find a nurse to come in and help with some things. Again, this is all based on me just saying the things that I know I would want if I was in that situation. So you'll have to really feel into this, but I will say that definitely you want to work with this nervous system piece, because this won't get better with time. And I really, really wish you well. Thank you for asking this question. The next question isn't a question, but someone wrote this in, and it is top of mind because it's really out there right now in the public eye. But they say, I'm going through a lot of problems because I'm going through benzodiazepine protracted withdrawal, and it is rough. Yes, it can be very effing rough. I've worked with clients who have titrated off of psychiatric meds and benzodiazepines. This would be Ativan, clonazepam. I'm gapping on some of the others right now. They're very tough to get off of. And some people are impacted more than others. And we think, as I listen to and watch content on this phenomena, there's a lot more talk about it right now. My sense is when someone has more of an early trauma history, this is just my speculation, so I'm speculating here. When someone has early trauma, more severe early trauma, and they have higher sensitivity, these pharmaceuticals impact them more. Just like some people will say, yeah, I have a glass of wine and I don't feel anything. And one person will say, I have a glass of wine and I can't sleep for 2 days and I break out like in hives, right? The wine is exactly the same, but the person is different. When it comes down to any decrease of any psychiatric med, it is essential that you get professional help, and preferably professional help where the help understands the full body, right? The full body. So you don't want to just work with your pharmacist and psychiatrist. You want to find some more holistic avenues. If you just look up benzodiazepine withdrawal support, I can guarantee you things will pop up. Facebook groups will pop up. Okay. I actually did one interview. Holly is her name. If you just look up Holly, like the holly that Christmas has, Holly and my name, Irene Lyon. I did 2 interviews with Holly. She was put on benzodiazepines due to a sexual assault in her young years, I think young adult years. She had PTSD. Of course, no one knew about the dangers of these drugs back then. She was put on them. And then she came off of them, and it was really tough. And she even says that SBSM saved her life. She needed to learn how to be in her body. One of the main things that occurs with this withdrawal is, I don't know what exactly is happening. It has to do with the neurotransmitters changing, but the skin tightens, it burns, it gets really, really painful. And so we need to learn, or a person needs to learn to not collapse and restrict more, and to really ride those feelings, those sensations really is what they are, and keep their mind resourced to good things. Diet is also really important, as is having lots of good healthy fat, because you're literally having to rebuild the cell membrane layer when you're coming off of these pharmaceuticals. Okay. Final question. And Seth, thank you again. I'm not going to get to any extra questions that were submitted to the document, but I think we're doing okay. All right. We have a little more water here. So 2 questions for me. This is from Anisha. In one of your articles, which was shared during the February 9th Zoom call on shame. Yeah, we did a call. Oh gosh, that was just Monday. So we did a call 2 days ago, drop-in class or mini class on shame. It was a really good class. I do recommend it. It's a $7 class. You get the recording. Seth and I are teaching that, and we're actually going to do a Q&A on the 21st because there were so many questions. We'll do that, I think, here on YouTube. So this is referencing an article. You mentioned that there's expert support from somatic therapists trained in trauma healing from a body-based nervous system perspective. So yeah, in Smart Body, Smart Mind, and also in the 21 days, there's moderated forums. So if you think about like a page on a website, there's a lesson or there's a general question thread, and then at the bottom you have like comments like you would on a blog post. That is where you can ask questions of our team. And so you asked, since your courses are online and participants are not working one-on-one with the therapist, how are we meant to know when the things you mentioned in 21 Day or SBSM may be too much? I'm concerned about making things worse without a therapist working with me. So I'm going to answer this two ways. A therapist is great. And I also know that people have worked with therapists and they've blown themselves out of the water. I'm not saying that one should not do therapy because it can be very, very beneficial. And what happens sometimes in a therapeutic relationship is you book an hour. And a lot of our work, when we're working with early trauma, you might just do 5 minutes. So let's say one of my lessons is 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Very few of them are past 40 minutes. You can, because it's an online course and you don't have anyone in front of you, you can stop that recording, and we encourage you to. If you start to feel something, or if you start to have a memory, or if you're like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, you do that. If you get hungry, you pause, you go eat something. When you're in a therapy situation, because of a lot of us were brought up in people-pleasing situations where we have to appease and be good, be the good patient, right? We will override what's occurring in our body and will present as okay, but inside we're screaming. And so we can do too much in one-on-one therapy. Now, not all therapists miss these cues, but when we have had a lot of smartness covering up our traumas, even the best therapists can miss things. So again, I don't say that to say don't do therapy, because I've done tons myself and I do lots of body work, as I mentioned. But the beauty of SBSM and 21 Day and these curriculums is that we can guide ourselves and we can pause when we need to. Have you ever been in a massage situation or a therapy situation and you want to like shake your legs or do something, but you don't want to do it because you don't want to upset the protocol that's occurring? And so that's like a little bit of a suppression. So when we're in the comfort of our own home, and this is why it is important that we have people around us that are somewhat supportive of what we're doing, or we have a room that we can go to and have privacy. When we're doing the lessons, Anisha, we essentially can dictate what we do. Even though it might be a lesson where I'm teaching it seated, if you feel a need to like get up and jump up and down, we say do that. Okay. Next question. You then ask, if there isn't a one size fits all approach, how do I know what to do during the 21 Day or SBSM? I still struggle to identify what feels good due to impaired neuroception. And yeah, that's the correct term. Interoception would be the other term. Neuroception essentially means the perception of safety or danger. So for example, I'll just give an example. You're in your house. When you are safe in your skin, yeah, the door might be unlocked, but it's no big deal. Someone who has what we might call really faulty neuroception, they know the door is locked, but they keep checking it. It even has like a bit of an OCD tendency there. But when we have really accurate neuroception, we know, yeah, I'm safe here. Like, I can walk down this path and it feels fine. I'm okay. Interoception is the cues that our body might give us internally, when I was talking about the organs earlier. So you asked guidance. So you're wondering, how do I know what to do when you struggle to feel what's good? Well, this is what you learn. So it sounds like you haven't done either of the programs. So this is, again, where you have to do a bit of a 180-degree shift. And this is maybe where I'll wrap up this call right now. I said at the beginning, this is like learning a new language. When you're learning a new language, you're not learning sentences. You're not learning paragraphs. You're not learning how to string together the writing or the hearing. You're learning very specific sounds, ways of saying things, the A's, the B's, the alphabet, the counting, the numbers. You learn I and you and toilet and all that, nose. This is why kids, when they learn, the parent is like, this is your nose and this is your hands. And you say these things and the baby sees you speak it. And that's how they learn. But doing that with a baby isn't teaching them how to walk. This is an important analogy. But the touching, the showing, the feeling of the feet, the baby then crawling, right? The baby feeling their spine, looking around, seeing what's in the environment, that is all in service of them eventually getting up and walking. Some people will say, babies they're so boring. They don't do anything for the first 2 years. Give me a 5-year-old so I can go and play ball with it or something like that, right? I've heard that before. But they're doing so much. So the first months that you're in these courses, you're like that baby. You're learning, this is my nose. You're not literally doing that, but you're learning, that's my body. That's the environment. These are my resources. I've got adrenals on top of my kidneys. What? You're learning, that's activation. That's deactivation. You're learning all the things that we teach, which are many. It's very comprehensive. So you're learning what seems to be things that are not connected. And this is why, you guys, it's so important to continue. Because to get to that point of being fluent with the language or being able to walk, if I use that example of walking, with a child, with an infant, you don't want to stop at year 2. You don't want to stop at month 3. You want to keep going. And I know this because of our alumni that have been around for the last 8 to 10 years, and more so in the last 5, when we've had more people go through the program. They are fluent now in their nervous system language, but they will say over and over and over again, why am I learning about beach balls in a swimming pool? This is one of my analogies. Why am I just touching my wrist and feeling it? Why am I looking around? Okay. And so they just have to trust that I'm not crazy and that I know my stuff, and that the course has been designed to sequence the learning so that you grow capacity, so that you can start to feel the things in the body, the confusions, and things become more clear. Again, that baby is not clear about what life is in the first 6 months. They got no clue. They're just a feeling, sensory, physiological machine. And how we attune to them and help them grows them into a regulated adult. But if we didn't get that when we were young, which again, if you're here and you've got stuff that you're working on, probably didn't happen, it's like a proxy. We're relearning how to do the stuff that we never did when we were little. So that's what I do. That's what my team and I teach in SBSM. It is not typical, this work. This is the first time that this has been put together in the way that it is. As far as I know, no one else has a course out there online that is self-study with this level of theory. I know for sure, with this level of theory and practice that blends 3 different methodologies. It's all within Smart Body, Smart Mind. You don't get all those details in 21 Day. It's SBSM. So we open registration on the 24th of February. It's a Tuesday. It's open for 1 week. So it closes on March 3rd. I'll be doing more things like this. A lot of answers are on the website for Smart Body, Smart Mind. Maybe Seth can pop up the website in the chat. I have so many testimonies, students, videos, written form. The other thing, we did one scientific study. I always forget this, but we partnered up with the University of Victoria. The neuroscience lab ran a study of, I think, 80 of our students. This was well over 5 years ago now. Hasn't been published yet, but the preliminary data was published, and it's been tried and tested. So high level psychology professors studying interoception and the body validated, I can't talk right now, they validated this program as something that is useful and has statistical significance for helping an individual gain interoception, become more comfortable in their body. Now, of course, this was a very set study for one moment in time. We didn't keep following these individuals, but that was one little drop in the bucket to show that this is the real deal. And we'll be running it again for a semester. Again, March 3rd is the deadline. We open up on the 24th. And if you're not on the wait list, so when you go to the site SBSM, you can put your email in to the wait list. We will be offering a little bit of an early bird perk for early registration. I haven't set those details exactly yet, but we'll probably open up registration a day or two earlier. And so if you get in a little early, there'll be some bonus offerings that will involve me talking and teaching just like this, just for you guys. So take care, everybody. Keep going. If you already have my courses and programs, because I just caught someone saying that they have it, keep going. You've got to redo the material over and over again. This is not something that you just do once. You have to repeat it. It isn't always going to feel good. You're not always going to see results immediately. Just like that baby isn't going to walk in the first month of their life. They have to learn. And then one day, poof, they just start walking. If you've had children, you know. You don't see it coming, and then there they are. And that's the beauty of some of the experiences I've heard our students talk about, is that they'll just be sitting there, and then all of a sudden something moves out and it's effortless. And then they have that healthy pride that a baby has when they get up and walk and do something for themselves on their own. And that's why we call this Become Your Own Medicine. But Become Your Own Medicine takes time. It takes time. It takes usually more than 12 weeks. So we're really open and honest about that. But the curriculum, again, once you are in, it is yours, and you can repeat it over and over again. Okay, I'm going to end this. Thanks, Seth, for being in the chat and answering. It looks like a lot of questions. Thanks for the folks who submitted questions to the email inbox. I really hope that has answered your queries, and I do feel that that's probably answered other people's queries. As you can see, this is a lot of education. I just talked for a lot, but in the course and program, you are doing detailed, intimate work with your nervous system, with your body, with your senses, with your movements. It really is like nothing else out there. So I hope you consider joining us for this next round. This will be the 19th round we've run this session, and can't wait to start again. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to end this live stream, and the replay will be available if you want to rewatch this. Thanks everyone. Bye for now.